What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Markets Podcast. And today I have with me a returning guest, Siwon Kim. He is one of the lead business development guys at MXC Foundation. But today we're going to primarily talk about AI and kind of the crossover to blockchain. So MXC is doing some work with AI and blockchain, and we'll get into that at some point. But the first question that I just want to go over with you is, well, first of all, what is AI on a very surface level breakdown?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's always fun to be with you guys. It's always a good chat. So I know that a lot of people have, brief understanding of AI, right? So AI stands for artificial intelligence. But then I think this is part where a lot of people get lost, thinking like, is it like computers knowing everything and so on? But technically, AI is actually an area of science. It could be like math, chemistry. AI is a whole range of science, and we just call that AI, right? So what AI basically does is that it allows machines, computers, and devices to simply take an input, make its own, inferential, mathematic, cognitive, neural learning through it, and then put out an output, right? So that's essentially what it's doing on a really basic nutshell.
Great. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty surface level for AI. A lot of people obviously have the idea that AI is like, like the Terminator movies or like iRobot, stuff like that. That's not exactly what AI is. That would probably be a very like down the road type of thing to happen if it does. And we'll get into that as well on a later question. So I guess the big thing would be, how can we combine AI and blockchain? That's the biggest question, because most of the audience that's going to be watching this or listening to this is going to know about blockchain. That's cool. But
Right.
How does AI and blockchain sort of work together? What are the possibilities?
Right. To look into that, let's really take AI and blockchain as two separate entities,
Mhm.
right? So for AI, like I mentioned, it needs an input to produce an output, right? If you're looking into deep learning, machine learning, that's basically how it works. So for input, that means data. And when you look around the world, in which network is there a crap ton of data? And that's blockchain,
True.
right? For blockchain, it can be like, sending money and so on, but it's essentially that the money is transitioned into some type of data that can travel securely and, fast through multiple blocks or like multiple networks. So that's basically what it is. So combining blockchain and AI means that AI can take that input data directly from blockchain. So of course, this solves one of the many challenges that AI has is that to develop a well-functioning AI, you need, number one, lots of data.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, lots of computing power. So we mentioned, that blockchain has a lot of data, but then when you look at, okay, for computing power, sure, you can have like cloud computers, but what closest thing to cloud computing do we have is blockchain. When people can use their own computing power, borrow their computing power to have these rewards. So we're solving that issue of AI through blockchain. Number three, a lot of people. You look at CoinMarketCap, there's like 3,000 plus projects. And then, even if these projects had like 5 people each, that's a lot of people. You look at investors, you look at people who are getting involved with crypto, with developing blockchain, with, just getting out there. And then, like you guys, educating people. That's a lot of people who are already involved in blockchain that's kind of being absorbed into AI, helping the AI develop faster and, with better mechanisms, essentially.
Right. Before I cut you off, actually, I just wanted to summarize. So basically, with computing power, and this is obviously from blockchain, the incentive to provide computing power, that's probably what the biggest thing about blockchain is. Not only that, but like you're able to process a lot of data. So that's the biggest thing for AI, because you need two of those things, computing power and data. So that's a good point. That actually solves a lot of the problems that AI has. And like you said, cloud computing, it's okay, right? But it can't compete with the kind of computing power that you could get from blockchain.
Exactly. I mean, so when you combine all these things, it actually solves one very critical issue in AI, is that you can have all the input data, you can have all the computing power, you can have all the people go into the input. And then, like I said, it comes on output. But then what goes on inside that AI is very, very difficult to track. How do you know that this AI mechanism is working? How do you know what is inferring from different data is indeed a correct way of thinking? And for that, there's a lot of scholars who kind of go into that, to really look into, tracking the kind of train of thought inside this mechanism of AI. But when you combine it with blockchain, you can kind of, track how the AI is working block by block. So, it's commonly known as the black box of AI that, no one can see what's going on inside. But using blockchain, you can actually take a deep look in the inside and actually have a very thorough view of what the AI is thinking and what it's working on. So that really solves one of the very critical issues of AI.
That is really cool. I didn't think about it like that. So I guess, that would be a big problem. You can't exactly see very clearly how the AI comes to the conclusion using the data without the blockchain. But with the blockchain, if you could track it block by block, and obviously you'd have, you don't have to use, specific methods. You could use, I guess, proof of stake, proof of work, whatever works. But you can track on the blockchain, every single move, and you could actually see the results over time and track the data that way. Not only that, but the data itself will be encrypted because of the blockchain and because of the incentive to add computing power to secure that network, which is also obviously a very big point, because if there's a lot of data going into this AI or machine learning, the problem is, what happens if that data gets leaked, or what happens, to that data if there are holes in it?
Exactly. So, I mean, you look at all these kind of borderline sci-fi, news headlines, such as, like, oh, Facebook's AI made their own language and nobody could know, like, what the fuck happened.
Yeah.
That's essentially what you're looking at is the black box problem of AI. And you're using blockchain. If they're using blockchain, then you can see, oh, like, here is the point when they started to develop their own language, and then this is how it happened. Right. So that kind of solves that critical issue.
Right, because so from the stuff that I've seen, especially with like machine learning, we'll dive into the differences between like machine learning and deep learning and all that. But from machine learning instances that I've seen or examples, what happens is, okay, you have the data collection, right? You create this neural network, and we'll also talk about what a neural network is. And you have these inputs, but then you also have your output. But in between that, those inputs and outputs, that's the part where you can't really see what's happening. All you get to see is how the machine learning continues to improve based on the data that's being added. So yeah, you're right. That's a very key problem to fix, which probably would explain that issue that Facebook had where they couldn't figure out where this language came from. So you actually mentioned that there are, on some of our questions, you mentioned there's over 30 projects working in combining AI and blockchain. What would it look like if they were actually to be successful in their efforts?
Right. I mean, so, like I mentioned, AI is such a big area, and, combining blockchain into different aspects of it could have different outcomes. But essentially what all these projects are really working on is, using blockchain to source that data and providing to AI. So if it were to, happen and be implemented successfully, what that essentially means is that when, for example, it could be you, it could be some agency that's recording data, that's collecting data. And that means that while you're doing that, you're contributing to, the AI by providing this valuable data. But also, because you provide the data to AI, you're basically earning rewards, could be in forms of tokens or crypto or points, like whatever that could be, anything really. It kind of shifts the balance in a way, because one interesting story that I have is that, before working in blockchain, I worked briefly in a digital marketing sort of consultancy that's pretty big. For clients, I had like Heineken and Unilever and these big companies. And we were actually developing kind of a machine learning, slash deep learning, cognitive computing, technology to kind of infer this input of marketing data into, projected into, predicted sales or, related purchases. And while we were doing that, you have this big database that this company collected, right? Could be like, we updated it once every week, and then each file is usually around 60 to 80 gigabytes. It was a pain in the ass to download, pain in the ass to open. Even then, these data are still collected by one agency, right? Or could be like 10 different agencies just still pulling in. But what is missing is that when it comes to these kind of data collection, these agencies are basically targeting certain groups of people and say, okay, they are relevant. These other people, they're not relevant. So therefore, are you really making an efficient AI technology when you're looking at, like certain group of people who you think is relevant? You're kind of planting human error into the system.
Mm.
And if you're using blockchain with everyone who may not be related by some different social norms or it could be any different standard, that means that you have more wider pool of data that is more genuine, straight from the source, not having to be filtered through the agencies. And with this, you can build an AI that is more omniscient in a way.
Like robust. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what, essentially that's what all the projects are doing. And I mean, of course, some are, succeeding and some are, having some problems, which we'll, of course, get into that in terms of, privacy, security, and so on. But essentially, in a nutshell, that's what everyone's doing.
Okay. And then, so I think what you were referring to, and this is what I've heard, and this is basically on like data science side of things, it's called selection bias.
Right.
Where you take a specific type of data, and as a human, obviously, you assume certain things. You come to some conclusions that the data is this way because of these factors, and you select a certain or filter a certain amount of data or types of data, but you may leave out others because you don't think that they're a factor in the end result.
Right.
And this is selection bias. And the problem with this is that this is usually because, as humans, we don't really, we're trying to kind of, sum things down, right? So that it makes it easier. But if you leave out certain data, you may not get the entire result or the complete conclusion that you're looking for, that provides accurate results. So like you're saying, with blockchain, we could aggregate a massive amount of data without having to worry about filtering, because of scaling issues and whatnot.
Right. And I mean, of course, I know that these different agencies or, like anti-blockchain people, if there are any, they can say, oh, but like we can never rely on the accuracy of this data or on the relevance of this data. It could be that when this data was collected, there was inherent problem with the device that was collecting data, right? So it could be any of these issues. But because blockchain has, already a smart contract included, it has a consensus method included. So that means that, right, so just to compare if this data is really accurate, compare the same data set from a same, nearby geographical area, for example, and then just compare, this one outlier to the rest of the group. Then you can see, okay, is this a unique outlier that should be given some significance, or is this just the fault of the device that was collecting data? So I think blockchain can really solve a lot of different issues in AI and also improving it to be something more than what we can imagine right now.
Right. It's funny because a lot of people initially thought that blockchain and AI were just two key, key terms for a lot of these companies, and they could be, for a few companies or maybe more, just to get more funding. And it would have worked really well because AI and blockchain are obviously two very big topics of discussion right now. So if you were, just faking it and bringing up, hey, we're gonna put blockchain and AI together, and just come up with something crazy, then yeah, that would make sense. I mean, that'd be an easy way to get funding. However, there are actual very, very good use cases for blockchain and AI. And that's obviously why we're discussing that now.
Right.
So how can AI be truly efficient while respecting privacy law around the world? We pretty much already covered this, but I just want to make it more clear.
Right. So even though we already covered this, I think this is a very important issue, right? Because you kind of have two different schools of thoughts on this. So you have one group of people saying all the data has to be completely inclusive. So that means that, like who the person is, where they were, like what kind of device they had, and so on. And of course, this means that you will simply have a large pool of data, and that would improve the AI. And of course, it makes sense. But then there's another group of people thinking, but then aren't we giving away too much personal data to these data agencies and so on? And of course, this kind of fear comes from the fact that you never know because this black box problem of AI, what the AI is going to do with your information, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know, like, would you rather give $20 to your mom that you already know, or would you rather give $20 to a shady guy on the street? It's kind of like you are reluctant to do an action because you don't know the outcome of it.
Right.
So that's just basically the issue. And I think, of course, there are many different, privacy laws around the world, but I think the European GDPR is definitely a significant standard. And the reason is, of course, there are critics saying, hey, it only applies to EU, which is sort of true, but at the same time, it's not true, because even if you're based anywhere else in the world, if you're doing business with an entity that's based in the European Union, you have to be GDPR compliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So I think, using EU GDPR as kind of the framework, really helps, because it has, first of all, it had government support, it has, private sector support, and it has an overreaching impact on the rest of the world. From our perspective as MXC Foundation, because we're developing AI in terms of IoT, this is for machines and for devices, there really is no reason for us to kind of share the personal data when it comes to coming about machine learning or what we call a smart machine learning, and these kind of aspects, because simply the human aspect of that is irrelevant for us. And if you think about it, there really is not that much AI that needs to be developed to be relevant for each human. Because if you care too much about who this person is, what this person does, where this person goes, then you're being too nitpicky. Even we don't do that. Maybe I have like 500 contacts on my phone. Most of the times, I don't even know where 499 of them are at the moment, right? Like, we only kind of care about what really matters. And that's also what AI should. So what we're doing is that we're simply saying, hey, first of all, we are removing these personal details from the moment that this data is collected, because it's just collected from a device. We don't care who set this device. We don't care who's in charge of it. Next thing is, of course, then let's say that you're looking into visual data, right? Videos, surveillance videos, where you see people, you have to see people. Then it violates the EU GDPR simply because it first has to go into a cloud where there is an AI mechanism built. So it gets uploaded to online. And that's what essentially breaks the EU GDPR compliance law. What we have done is that we have developed a hardware chip that has some built-in AI. So we have made this AI come offline into the device. So this device doesn't have to upload data into the cloud and break EU GDPR. It simply processes all the data offline inside the device. So that is something that we have developed. And of course, when people say, oh, how can this AI then truly learn and develop itself? We also have firmware updates that go regularly into the AI. And then we are using LP1 and so on to handle this AI data, which we have two different patents currently in pending. So that is something that we're doing. So yeah, I think there are many different exciting developments in this thing. And,
so I want to talk more about what you were just mentioning. So you were saying that you guys have developed a system that allows you to, instead of upload the data to the cloud, you can process it offline with this hardware chip that you guys have created. So how do these firmware updates work? And I guess like you were mentioning, like, how exactly can it be trained without being online? And I'm sure it's possible. I just don't understand it.
Right. So, well, there are, of course, like many different ways to do it. I'm sure, I'm not saying one way is better than the other. It's just, it's not coming from a development perspective, but it's more coming from the legal perspective.
Yes.
Right. So first of all, the firmware update is done through Bluetooth. So, we send out a Bluetooth signal to, each devices and so on. And then they simply, update their firmware to make it more efficient and have more processing power when it comes to that. And next thing is about AI learning. Let's say that, this device collects different data and it processes through AI, right? Then it sends out the result of that online. So we are still getting the result of this, and we can use this result to, build a larger network to make things more efficient. We simply don't need to take the input data, which is protected by EU GDPR, online. But the result is not protected by EU GDPR because it's completely different from the input.
Oh, I
So
see.
it's kind of a workaround.
It's like a loophole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so so the input itself, as long as it is processed offline,
Mm.
you can just post the result online. And that's how
Yeah.
you can get around or get through the GDPR compliance. That makes sense.
Yeah, let's say that an app developer wants to know during which times is this road the most congested. We have Google traffic, and let's say that they want to use AI for that. Most companies take this video surveillance data from the road and then take that information to the cloud, to online. But from that, let's say that you are driving at the moment in a car, and your car is there, your license plate is there, your face is there, right? And it shows your location at what time. That's personal data that's being uploaded, which is against the EU GDPR. But then if we process that offline, and then the result says, hey, during 6 p.m. On these days, this road is the most congested, then that completely have removed the personal details. And then we send that to the cloud, EU GDPR compliance issue solved.
All right, so let's talk about these terms that I'm sure people are familiar with, or if you're not, we're going to at least cover them in surface detail. So the first term is obviously artificial intelligence. That's AI. I'm pretty sure that's just like an umbrella term. The second term is ML, or machine learning. And the third term is deep learning. So what's the difference between these three terms on a surface level? And you can get into to some depth here or there. And we'll also talk about what's a neural net after this.
Right. So I think to help people's imagination, think of it like an onion, right? So the entire onion is AI. Then you peel out some layers, and the nice crispy part of the onion is machine learning. And then you go really deep, and then the part where it starts to turn a bit green, that's deep learning. So it kind of draws a picture for you.
Mm-hmm.
So machine learning is, in a simpler way, it's basically creating this kind of program, or should I say protocol, to allow the machines to take data from different data inputs or different machines, for an example, through machine-to-machine communication, and then get the result of a specific problem, right? So essentially just allowing machines to get the data from each other and then analyze the data in a certain way to produce an output about some problem. Now, the reason that I said kind of you process that data, then you kind of come into deep learning. Deep learning is one of the many methods inside machine learning. And deep learning is kind of this very technical term, but if you look into it, it basically means, okay, how should we program these machines so that which way do they, what method do they use to process this data? And deep learning is simply saying that, okay, we'll program the protocol inside the machines to kind of be based like human brain. So that's basically what deep learning is. So deep learning and machine learning are not the same thing. It's kind of different. Yeah. But deep learning is simply one of the many schools of thoughts into how should machine learning be developed.
So basically, so deep learning, so it's what it sounds like. So deep learning is like a more in-depth version of machine learning, where the AI and we obviously, if you know what AI means, just artificial intelligence. I think it pretty much covers machine learning and deep learning as like an umbrella term. But anyway, so if the AI can take this data, not only put the output out there, but also start to learn about itself, right? Learn about like its own processes and learn about its own neural network, which we will cover in a second, then it can kind of adjust and update itself almost. And I can't remember exactly where I saw this, but there was actually some instances and some examples where there was some deep learning AI who were essentially like, they were updating their own software. So that if there was any issues, any bugs, they were like figuring out where the holes were, and just doing the updates themselves rather than having. And I kind of look at machine learning as it's more like, it's not dumb, but it's just dumber than deep learning, where it's just not as intelligent as a deep learning AI would be.
Right.
Because a machine learning, it can only take the inputs and give you an output, but it can't necessarily fix itself, or
Right.
it can't figure out how the process works. It's just taking the data you give it and it's giving you an output.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So let's talk about neural nets, neural
Sure.
networks. So neural nets are actually like based on actual, neurons, how the body actually works, which is pretty cool. So if you think like how anatomy works and how our neurons work in our bodies, like how we, our nervous system essentially, you can essentially tie in the same principles to a neural net,
Mm-hmm.
because you have, from the brain, from the core, you have an input, and then you have an output, and that's the response that you get whenever you're, if I'm moving my arms around, whatever, then I am telling my brain is telling my appendages to move, and so you get an input and then you get an output. Could you explain a little bit more, and probably better analysis than I just did on a neural net, and how it works with AI?
Right. So that's a good question. I mean, I think the analogy you use is it's quite accurate. It's very understandable. But let's take your analogy and let's take it one step further. Right. So your brain is telling a part of your body to move, and it does. Right. But then let's say that you touch something hot with your fingers. It
Mm-hmm.
sends the signals back to your brain. Then your brain sends a signal back to the arm saying like, "Hey, you idiot! Like, move your fingers away." Right.
Right.
So I mean, so that's essentially how these signals work. It's a constant back and forth feedback and response kind of action. And when we kind of look at this into neural networks and how it's applied to AI, is that let's say that you have a central AI which you would kind of use it like a brain, right? So the brain is the AI, and it's capable with deep learning that to improve itself, to learn from its mistakes, or to figure out where things went wrong, and then perhaps even suggest solutions for it. Then let's say that, okay, how is it getting the data to improve itself? Then that's where the this neural net is really working. That you have different computers, different devices getting these information, and they're kind of like a mini AI in a way,
Mm-hmm.
that they can accept input, they can produce output, but they're not capable of making the analysis themselves. All that data gets sent back to the central AI brain. Then let's say that the central AI brain notices a certain frequency of errors coming from a certain part of the neural network. Then the AI, depending on the data that it has received from the specific part of the neural network, can suggest a solution or roll out a bug fix to fix that part of the neural network. So in a way, it's a more inclusive system that you can truly use to kind of operate the entire, I would say, the entire network, the entire chain. It's no longer just an analysis. It's also analysis plus action. And I think that's kind of what's interesting about neural network.
Great explanation. It's like a proper neural network it'll be just like you described it. So if I was to put my hand on a hot surface, well, first of all, I put my hand there in the first place. So
Right.
I had an input to put my hand on the surface, and it was hot. Now, I also had an input that told me, now the output was obviously me putting my hand there. Now the input I also received was the fact that it was hot. So then I get another input, and then my next output is to remove my hand from that hot surface. So I learned that, hey, it's probably a bad idea to put your hand on a hot surface because it doesn't feel very good, right?
Right.
It's not very well in a computer's mind. It's not very efficient, right? Or it's a problem. In our mind, it's just like it's pain. So for a computer or an AI, it's basically learning like, hey, these things over here, they aren't working very well, and we can see that this is a problem. So we're going to take this data and we're going to bring it back to the core and try to figure out how we can keep this from happening in the future. And then it just starts to narrow down on the issue little by little until it finally erases the problem, period. And that's why you have to continue to keep collecting this data, not only from like, new data being entered, but also from the data that it's receiving from its actual result.
I think just to add to that, one thing that I would be really interested in future development is, we are all building this AI or neural network and everything to be kind of perfect, right?
Mhm.
But I would be interested in seeing some development of a certain type of AI that's more experimental, because for example, like when we are walking down the street and we see a wall and it says wet paint, don't touch. And you're like, like it doesn't look that wet. I still want to touch it,
Yeah.
right? And you kind of know that if it's wet, you're gonna get paint on your finger.
Mhm.
A computer may not be willing to do that because it's like, okay, like probability, that's a dumb thing to do. But then I'm kind of interested in seeing a system that says, you know what, like let's go for it, see what happens. And if like it deliberately causes a certain error to fix that error itself. So I would be more interested in seeing, I think that's really going to be interesting.
That is interesting. It's almost like it says, I don't know, like the probability of this being wet paint is probably very high, but I don't know for sure. So let me just test it anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
So that I know in the future if it's actually wet paint. That's interesting. Okay, well let's talk about, since we just talked about kind of like a rogue AI, where it says I'm going to test the waters. This is where we kind of transition into the possible Terminator, iRobot scenarios. Are these types of scenarios possible? And I guess what would it take to get to those scenarios in the first place?
Right. So I think, first of all, let's
This is my
say,
favorite part.
right, like what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
I think the AI has to be developed to reach a certain outcome that involves, in these cases, the existence of humanity, right?
Right. It has to realize that we exist.
Yeah, and
Right.
it has to know that we are one of the independent variables to its possible outcome that it realizes as ideal, right? So that's kind of the first step, that we ourselves, our existence has to be converted into a variable.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is that then the AI has to be relevant to solving a specific problem that we are causing, right? So we have to be a significant independent variable. And then the third step is that the AI would then have to kind of have a built-in mechanism of problem solving. Then, of course, the next thing is that the AI would have to have the second constitutional right, and just kind of to put the jokes aside and everything, it would
Yeah.
have to have certain rights by itself. What is it allowed to do? What is it not allowed to do? It's not really a matter of ethics at this point. It's just that how capable are these AIs in justifying its actions? So once these factors are all provided, and once these AIs have a massive network that can control independent parts of a robot, or one robot in case of Terminator, or many like shitload of robots in iRobot,
Yeah.
then it would happen. So I don't know, for this to happen, like I can think of a scenario right now. Like I know, like we love our girl, like Greta Thunberg, right?
Mhm.
But we know, like this girl, she has some sass, right? She got some attitude. So let's say that like Greta says one day, like, yo, like I'm gonna build an AI with a fucking massive robot army to solve climate change. Then the AI says, hey, guess what? The biggest factor that contributes to climate change is humans. then then they can be like, all right, guys, like we found a problem, let's have a solution.
Right.
And yeah, like kill all humans, let's do it. Like like,
It's funny you mentioned that. So, I don't know if you've seen all the memes on Twitter, but some of the memes are like when coronavirus was going on, the whole world was locked down, and you started having like animals, coming into the city, or there was like one where there was a bunch of sheep going through cities in Turkey, and the caption was, the like something to the effect of like the animal kingdom is healing, humans are the virus.
yeah.
Something like that. I just think that's funny because if an AI decides that humanity is a sort of virus and determines that 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 humanity needs to go, then that's a possibility. But I don't know how much farther we're going to go down the road for that one, and I
Yeah,
don't know if
I mean,
there's any safeguards to keep the AI from thinking that way.
well, like there is. It's plug it out,
Yeah.
turn it off. But
Yeah.
but if these AIs are then on blockchain that recognizes on the computing power of everyone around the world, then that would be more difficult, right?
Right.
But I think the probability of that happening is gonna be very, very small. Maybe you might have malfunctioning in one like AI-enabled robot.
Right.
But to think of a central AI brain that controls a massive army of robots, that's I think even our current computing power as an entire planet cannot even provide that.
Right. If there are any, what are some challenges in combining AI and blockchain?
Right. So I think the most significant challenge is interoperability.
Right.
So you might think, it's very easy to kind of, just smash those two things in and make it work. It's what, of course, a lot of people say. But we have to understand that the entire AI system is built on different standard. And I think the problem is not caused by AI, but it's caused by blockchain. Because a lot of blockchain companies want to make their own mainnet, right? It's kind of like your rite of passage, or you're a
Right.
blockchain company, you gotta have your mainnet, bro.
Right.
Like,
Gotta
what are
have
you
the
doing?
mainnet, bro. This is what my funding told me to do. I gotta get to this point. Keep giving me money.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And like everyone's saying like, oh, when mainnet and so on, but like let's really look into that, right? Like you have different blockchain companies developing different mainnet, which in a way mainnet is essentially a standard for these data to communicate with each other.
Right.
3,000 plus, let's just say like, oh, from that the top 1,000 has mainnet. There's 1,000 different freaking standards for each and every single one of them.
Yeah.
So when you use a certain blockchain to provide data to an AI, if one project is doing that to a certain AI, they're gonna, communicate with data in a specific way that's different from another AI. Then these two AIs, since their main standard protocol of operating and processing data are different, they would no longer be interoperable. That's
Mhm.
essentially what's happening. And I think it really kind of points out this problem in blockchain that almost everyone has been forgetting for so long, is that stop making so many freaking mainnets. It doesn't matter. Like, even those
Yeah.
people who ask when mainnet,
Yeah.
they don't care about the mainnet. That basically,
They
they
just
basically
want the pump.
think, yeah, exactly. And then you're
Yeah.
thinking, oh, but like, how does a mainnet contribute to the pump? It doesn't.
Right.
It's just a way to justify a pump. That's
Right.
it.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I mean, let's look at our current world. We have Android, we have iOS, we have Windows, we have Mac OS, and we have Linux. Like, those are 5 different operating systems.
And they serve their purposes really well. They all
Exactly.
do very specific things.
Yeah, and we just need these 5 to operate everything. So, like, I'm sorry, like, who in their right mind thinks, oh, like, I don't know, like, I'm gonna make a blockchain project and I'm gonna make my own different freaking mainnet that's unique to my own project, and then expect to really connect different devices, connect different computers, connect different people with that. I think that's just completely preposterous, right?
I agree.
It's like it's just such a cocky idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, imagine that, right? Imagine, okay, in a most perfect world, right? You have a built-in AI inside your home, and this AI has learned like what you like to eat, what you like to listen to, how you like your temperature and everything. Like, your life is freaking perfect. Like, it cooks all the meals for you and everything. But imagine to do that, and it has already been implemented with blockchain, but then that means that, oh, like, your bath temperature is measured with one different operating system, your phone usage is measured with another, your lighting is measured with another, and so on. It just completely, just exhausts the entire AI system.
Yeah, and I agree. And I had Joe Rhodes, CEO of Dragon Chain, on. I know you're familiar with Dragon Chain.
Yeah, yeah.
They're doing really really good stuff with interoperability. But even with the software that they have to work with interoperability, you still have to, it takes time, to work in each blockchain. I mean, they've got the Bitcoin blockchain, the Ethereum Classic, Binance Chain. But for each blockchain that they add, you're adding a new standard. Then the issue is, it's like each of them has their own, and obviously this would work, I think, with the Dragon Chain software. You could probably integrate it somehow and just rely on dragging chain software itself. But I think for AI, it needs to have a specific, like you're saying, a specific standard or a specific blockchain where all of that AI data is processed through one blockchain rather than multiple. So even with interoperability, I think you still need to like cut down on a couple, at least a couple of standards or blockchains, so that you don't have as many as you do, and the data can be parsed more seamlessly. And it's there, even for these companies that are developing the AI, they don't have to like try to figure out, oh well, there's 100 over here, 100 blockchains over here that we could try, or there's 100 over here. They can just narrow it down to a couple, and it just makes it easier for the entire industry as a whole to come to a conclusion that like this is what works. What is all use the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, even as MXC, like we do have our own protocol, but it's open source, and we don't have a mainnet. We are a parachain, so we are also working on interoperability in IoT. And even then, when we already provide these interoperability solutions, even then it's really difficult. And I think especially with when it comes to IoT, when it comes to devices and machines, when they themselves already have a built-in protocol themselves inside them, you cannot just knock on a company, be like, hey, like you're gonna change all the protocol inside your hardware to ours because crypto. Like that's just sad argument.
Yeah,
right?
and it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen either.
And they'll be like, I don't know, like who are you? And then just like get out the door. So what we have done is, but there is, no matter what kind of mainnet or blockchain or whatever that you use, there is one standard that, is that it's all based on electricity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of would have to essentially plug something in. That's kind of the unifying variable in this case, which is also why for in our cases, we have brought our protocol inside a hardware. So to implement our protocol, you just simply have to plug in the hardware, which is a lot more simpler to do than changing the entire protocol of inside a computer or device or whatever. And I think that there's, of course, different solutions and workarounds and things like that. That's something that we have found the most efficient in our industry. But I think, of course, when it comes to AI development and cloud and big data issues, like most mainnets, like, sorry, bros, you gotta get out.
Yeah.
Like there's no space. The bus is full.
I mean, that's the biggest problem with crypto right now, is that it's not even necessarily and there's very few companies. Like obviously yours is one. MXC Foundation is obviously doing actual work. They're actually, you guys are actually building, a product and trying to, make this stuff work. But there's also a lot of companies out there, and we spoke about this before. There's a lot of companies out there that just are trying to catch a pump. They're just trying to, outlast or just trying to raise more money if possible. And they're not actually trying to build anything. And yet their main net is still there. Their chain is still there. And so when you're a company trying to decide, okay, which one of these blockchains should I choose? There's too many options. And that's usually not a problem, right? But in this case, there is too many options. So over time, I have the feeling, and I know that these are things that are going to narrow down. People are going to start to figure out, hey, what is blockchain tech? What is the best types of blockchains to use? What are we looking for? And of course, that's going to rule out a lot of these, blockchains or projects that don't have a blockchain.
Right.
So let's talk more about what you guys are actually doing, because
Sure.
I want to be, get into the specifics. So what is it that you guys are using, machine learning for specifically, and like how are you guys combining blockchain and AI together?
Right. So, well, in terms of AI, what we're developing is, right now it's mainly for data measurement and also for security. Not like building security or like bounce at a club. It's more like for fire hazards and these kind of natural disasters. So, in terms of an actual built-in AI hardware, we actually have built a AI camera. So it's kind of looks like a regular CCTV, security camera, but it has a built-in AI mechanism, and it also has different sensors inside of it. So what that means is that, let's say that you have this camera on the street looking at like down the avenue or something. Then this camera can detect, first of all, like if there are any, for example, fire hazards, and then the second thing, it has visual input such as, oh, there's a smoke. And then the third layer is, do you actually see an actual flame? Right. So that is something that we have already built, that we are rolling out, is to tackle fires in more larger areas such as forest fires. That it's kind of like the most current joke could go like, I don't know, if a entire forest burns, but no one was there to see it, did it really burn? The answer is yeah, because it fucking burned.
Yeah.
And we're building an AI camera that detects that, and it could be for fire. We are also currently working on actually a new partnership to detect the kinds of trash that's on the street. And this seems quite menial because it's trash. Like, who cares about trash other than,
No, that could
I
be
don't know,
something
like,
cool.
yeah, right. But I mean, a lot of people think, oh, it's just trash. Like, we don't care about trash. Only raccoons care about trash. But when you actually look into what kind of trash are the most frequent, are those cigarette butts? Are those beer cans? And for example, then you kind of narrow down the source of the trash. Could be that, one way to solve this littering issue is that designate that area as a non-smoking area, or to implement some kind of regulatory fines on the bars around that area so that people cannot take their bottles outside, and these kind of things. Another thing that we are working in China, especially, and also in Germany, is that we are using our AI, built-in AI mechanism, to measure the amount of people in a certain area. I know it could be an iffy issue. I know that especially these days with all the protests, like people are kind of freaked out, like they don't want the cops filming them. But since this visual input in our cases never goes to online, it's completely secure. It's anonymous in the end. And then it's kind of looking at, okay, like let's say that you're at a train station and from this time to this time you see a lot of people in the footage, then the AI can make that produce the result that says during this time to this time there's a lot of people. Then we have like built-in sensors to also different areas within that train station, for example, and I say, okay, like when there's a lot of these people, trash cans become more full, or like there's too much carbon, there's too much carbon dioxide in the air, for example, then that can also improve the caring of the infrastructure itself. So these are some really concrete things in combining AI and blockchain that what we're doing. And of course, the blockchain in this case is used to send that output data from the device to the cloud or to the server using blockchain. So it's no one can manipulate it, no one can hack into it, it cannot be leaked, so that it's also used in a secure and responsible way.
That's really cool, actually. I like that.
Yeah, and I think it has a lot of future. We have received quite a few interests, especially from Australia with the bushfire. In many urban cities with where this congested population, train stations in Germany, it's quite unique because they want to kind of on one hand find out which train stations are overused and overpopulated, but then their main concern is actually picking out which train stations are not used so much, so they can remove that train station to make it more efficient. Germans and their efficiency, you have to give it up to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, those are just some concrete things that we're doing.
Awesome. Do you have any, things that maybe you, some ideas where you think that you could kind of evolve into or cover a, more space, or just in a different area? I mean, obviously you guys are doing what you're doing now,
Right.
but is there anything else that you guys are thinking about, like moving into?
Yeah, actually, I think since for a very long time, we kind of sat down and, like most of us in MX Foundation, I mean, first of all, the project was created not to just say, okay, like we want to use blockchain, let's find a problem. It was kind of that we found a problem first and then we use blockchain to solve it. And then most of, at least our marketing team is concerned about why should anyone care, right? I think we are a unique company that is quite humble, and that we really look at ourselves critically and say, okay, like we develop these things, okay, who cares, right? Like I sometimes tell myself, okay, I don't care about this, and I read like what we're doing, and especially with AI and all these things, why should anyone care, right? Like, I don't know, like things work fine just now. Maybe things will work better in the future. Like, but it doesn't really incentivize people to become part of the movement, to contribute their data, for example. So most recently, what we have done is we have actually rolled out a crypto miner, and I think it's quite an accomplishment because we did it in a very short amount of time. And the reason that we have done this is that, okay, what if as more data is being collected, as more data is being transmitted, and more development is happening, what if people can literally earn money, even if they don't care about it, even if they don't do an active part in it? So we have developed a miner that uses low electricity. So it uses less than 5 watts, which means like a light bulb. So your operational cost is essentially zero compared to like 600 for an ASIC miner. And the second thing is you can also, it's weatherproof, so you can install it outside. It doesn't need a specific rig, or it needs to be inside, for example. I mean, the reason I'm talking about this is that people can contribute to the entire ecosystem of data and developing AI and developing cool new technologies that evolve around the world. And then they don't have to know everything about it. They don't have to be technical experts. They just simply turn on this miner, it mines different tokens, and then they earn money. And I think the coolest part is that it actually mines 4 different tokens at the same time. So I think it's quite revolutionary. I know that ASIC miners only mine single tokens, right?
Right.
But with our miner, you can earn MXC token, of course. The second thing is DHX token, which is Data Highway DAO. It's a new upcoming project in Berlin. Third thing is I think it's IPFS, which is
I know
quite
about
new.
IPFS. Yep.
Yeah, but a lot of popularity in China, especially. And fourth thing is, of course, Bitcoin. And I think it's quite cool for people to earn money, even if they don't understand it. And the reason that I emphasize on the word understanding it is that most of us know that mining used to make money. Now it not so much, but we know it used to. But how come nobody really got involved in it? Because they don't know how to set it up. They don't know what to do.
Right.
They don't know all the commands on the computer and everything. But we actually also made a mobile app for both iPhone and Android that you can control your devices, your data management, your miner, and that you can actually do all these settings in an easy way, including also staking through a mobile app securely. So you can literally just install it anywhere you want. You can go on a holiday and just check on your app and control it directly from your app.
So that would make more sense I was actually going to ask that one of those questions, like how do people get more involved? So first question, are you guys actively selling this miner that you're talking about? And the second question is, how would you suggest somebody, and we just talked about it, but how would you suggest somebody take the steps to get more involved in mining, I guess, for somebody who's like, who maybe he just wants to like conserve more data, or, I don't know, be more efficient?
Well, first of all, we ourselves are not directly selling this miner. We have developed it in conjunction with another hardware company based in Berlin called MatchX.
Okay.
MatchX is currently selling it. They actually, right now it's in pre-order. I know that they already made a couple of thousand sales in China. So that's quite huge. And of course, we combine our efforts in doing that. And I think now the next place it's going to roll out is South Korea, Russia, and then EU and the United States. So we are really working to bring it to as many people as possible. The waiting list right now is quite huge. We are really thankful for that. I think it's because a lot of people, especially these big mining pools, are losing profitability after Bitcoin halving.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're kind of trying to boost that profit level. And one way that people can participate in mining and making it more efficient and so on is that I think in the end, people want to do all these things because they simply want to make more money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in our app, we have actually built in a very, very simple mechanism that shows you, well, first of all, your mining efficiency. So you don't have to rely on forums and like different people on Reddit or or join different Discord channels to ask about it. You have a direct feedback from your miner directly onto your mobile phone. So then it would give some certain suggestions. For example, like, oh, like it's too deep underground. You should like put it near your window. It's overheating, or could be things like that.
That's great, because most people just they want to be hands off.
Yeah,
tell
exactly.
me what I got to do.
Yeah. And then another thing that we have actually built in is that we also want to make sure that people are actively participating, right? And I think it's also an area that's been ignored for so long when it comes to proof of stake, proof of work. All these things kind of show are a reflection of how our society works. Is that like proof of stake, if you have money in the society, you're going to earn money. Proof of work, if you could work, then you're going to earn money. But in the end, we all participate in our society. I think that's the most important thing. So we have built-in mechanisms that actually give you some certain, I would say, a boost in your mining profitability for a certain period of time when you do certain participation or certain actions. So this doesn't have to be hardware. For example, this could be that, oh, like you opened your app like every day, for example, to check. Then that kind of gives you certain points. Or you talked about it on social media, you made content about it, you wrote an article about it, or you invited some friends to join, that's certain points and so on. So that way, even those people who are not hardware and tech savvy can get involved in mining and start profiting and start, really increasing that profit margin that has been set by them. So it's quite different because, most other mining, I would say, is to earn more, you need to stake more, or you need to purchase more hard, that. So that's what we have done. So yeah, I think it's gonna be like really cool, getting a lot of interest from all around the world. Right now it's pre-order, and once the pre-order has been ended, we're gonna go into regular sales. But we're also we're gonna through you guys and through our networks and friends, we're gonna start rolling out some discount codes so people can also get it for cheap. What we also want is that get these networks involved. So for example, you could maybe like put in a code on your app, and then because you'll be kind of assigned to like different teams or groups, let's say like Clash of clans, let's say, and you could enjoy mutually shared kind of profit level by pulling in the efforts together. And that's what we really want to do. We want people to come together as a community and contribute to the developmental ecosystem, even if they don't know anything about it. I think these people have been ignored in both blockchain and AI for so long, for too long. And I think it's about time that they should be included in what we're doing and what we're developing.
And that's the best way to do it. I mean, that's the best way to get them involved. The incentive of making some money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like everyone likes money, right?
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think we pretty much covered like everything. I mean, if that doesn't cover AI and blockchain, I think this is probably like the go-to episode, or even the go-to podcast right now for AI and blockchain. I haven't seen anybody cover this in detail like we just did. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on. I would like you to just go ahead and if there's anything in specific, and obviously you and I will talk about, the discount code for the pre-orders and whatnot. But if there's anywhere that any of the guys listening can go right now, then you can go ahead and just go ahead and talk about that. Where can they find more resources on MXC? And just go ahead and shout out your social media and everything.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to find out more about MXC, go to our website, mxc.org, ORG, remember that part. Or just type MXC Foundation on Twitter, and we're right there. And if you're interested in for example, checking out this app, we are also going to do some cool promotions to encourage people to get involved. We recently rolled out the app. So if you have an Android, I have both Android and iPhone with me, but if an Android, just go on Google Play, type the app's name's MXC Data Dash. Just type that is the first result, and you can download it straight on Google Play Store, and then you can just check it out. If you want to go on your iPhone, right now we don't have it on iPhone App Store yet. So you would just have to go to our website, go on the Supernode tab, and then you can download the iPhone version of the app through our website. And yeah, I mean, after that, I mean, I encourage everyone to, ask any questions that they may have, if they want to know more about the miner or the operation itself. I think and one thing that I think right now, the information about the miner isn't so available. We do have kind of a one-pager, very simple explanation prepared. We're going to roll that out. But I know that a lot of people want to find out, ROI on the miner and so on. But we also don't make empty promises. We are sick and tired of other projects doing that. So right now, it's running in China. So we're collecting the data from that, and then we're actually going to do precise statistical analysis of the ROI from field data and provide that.
Love it.
That no one is being told bullshit. I hate that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you and I are on the same page.
Yeah, exactly.
The crypto community already has too much of that, so I appreciate your honesty on that.
Yeah, and then other than that, make sure to follow us on Twitter. I think in like 2 weeks it's gonna be my birthday. So for my birthday, because I will be alone thanks to coronavirus, and because
I'm sorry,
my girlfriend doesn't want to travel to Berlin.
Oh man,
because of coronavirus, of course. And I live alone, so I'll be very lonely. So I'll probably do some just a few giveaways. You just might give away some Bitcoin or USDT, like whatever. So check me out on Twitter, and yeah.
It's your Twitter is at ifuc1.
Yeah, like if you and alphabet C and number 1.
Got it. Okay, so go follow him on Twitter. He needs more followers. And I guess what date, so that I can know myself, is your birthday?
June 20th.
June 20th. Okay, so look out for some giveaways then, and I'll be sure to remember that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Siwon, for coming on. And by the way, I always say Siwon. Like, how do you actually say your name?
So I say my name actually incorrectly. Do you actually say my name correctly? It's
great.
I know. So in Korean, it's Siwon. So it's like a she sound.
Siwon?
Yeah, you say it correctly. I call myself Siwon, which is wrong pronunciation, but I just got used to it.
Probably because everybody else calls you that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Like at one point, I was like, all right, like fuck it, I'm gonna go with it.
Nice. Well, thank you, Siwon, for coming on, and we'll have to have you on for another future episode. And as as AI and blockchain kind of evolves, and as you guys are starting to do new things, we'll definitely have to revisit. But this is a really fun episode. I hope this gives everybody at home a very good explanation of what AI and blockchain possibilities are, or what AI is in general. And until next time, we will see you guys in the next.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. And for everyone who's watching, make sure to also follow Ty on Twitter and also Modern Markets. I know you guys provide, and also subscribe to their newsletter. I subscribe, and I get a lot of good contents through that, a lot of great articles. So yeah, I encourage everyone to do so, and everyone who's working in blockchain to reach out to Ty, schedule for an episode. It's really fun, and you get to talk about anything that's on your mind, and it's a really relaxing and fun episode. So yeah, I encourage everyone to do that.
Thanks, man. You're a beast.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya.